Munich, The Edge of War is the story of two young men embroiled in one of the most crucial moments in 20th century history. Adapted from Robert Harris's novel, the film is set in the autumn of 1938, as the British Prime Minister desperately tries to broker peace.
As long as war has not begun, there is always hope that it may be prevented.
Meanwhile, one of his civil servants connects with an old German friend, carrying an all-important document that could change the course of history.
Don't look at it, just put it under your arm, goddammit. Right. You make a terrible spy, Hughes.
While the film and the book are fiction, they are rooted in real events in history. So, let's take a look at the true story behind Munich, The Edge of War. Adolf Hitler rose to power in the latter half of the 1930s and was determined to invade neighbouring countries to reclaim lost German territories. Having already marched into Austria, Hitler set his eyes on Czechoslovakia, specifically the Sudetenland, which bordered Germany and where many Germans lived. The Czech government at the time was against annexing these borderlands to Germany. Meanwhile, the British and French were intent on avoiding another war and adopted a policy of appeasing Hitler's Germany. It was then Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, portrayed by Jeremy Irons in the film, who took the lead on the growing crisis. He met with Hitler a total of 3 times. The first on the 13th of September 1938 at Hitler's residence in Berchtesgaden. The second took place in Bad Godesberg on the 24th, resulting in the Godesberg Memorandum, which demanded that Czechoslovakia give up the Sudetenland to Germany by the 28th of September. If they did not agree, Hitler threatened to take the territories by force. Mere hours before the deadline passed, Chamberlain managed to convince Italy's leader, Benito Mussolini, to enter the negotiations and urge Hitler to delay any hostilities.
If Herr Hitler is not going to listen to me, maybe he'll listen to his great friend, Benito Mussolini.
Hitler agreed to a delay, and an emergency meeting between Britain, France, Germany and Italy was set for the 29th of September in Munich. Even though this meeting was about Czechoslovakia, their government had no input. As we see in the film, Chamberlain received news of this conference from his personal secretary while he was addressing Parliament.
I am able to report to the House that I have just received news from Berlin that Herr Hitler has postponed mobilization.
Given the urgency of the situation, it's not surprising this meeting did not take long to reach a resolution. As pictured here, those in attendance included Chamberlain, Hitler, Mussolini and French Prime Minister Édouard Daladier. In the small hours of the 30th of September, the Munich Agreement was signed, agreeing to German occupation of the Sudetenland, as well as de facto control of the rest of the country. On the agreement, Hitler would go no further, which we know now was not what he intended to do. Czechoslovakia had no option but to accept, knowing they could not fight the Nazi army without the support of Britain or France. Shortly after the Munich Agreement was signed, Chamberlain approached Hitler to sign a non-aggression statement, symbolic of the desire of the two countries to never go to war with one another again.
I want him to publicly commit himself to peace.
The news of a diplomatic resolution was met with relief. With Europe still scarred by the First World War, then known as the Great War, the prospect of another conflict weighed heavily on the leaders of the time.
I fear for the spiritual well-being of our people if they don't see their leaders doing everything, absolutely everything, to prevent another conflict.
As Chamberlain returned to London waving the non-aggression pact signed by himself and Hitler, it seemed like war had been averted. He was met in London with scenes of jubilance, cheered by thousands as he arrived at Buckingham Palace to give a first-hand report to King George VI. Chamberlain later addressed a similarly cheering crowd from a second-floor window at number 10, declaring, "I believe it is peace for our time." But that wasn't the case. By March 1939, Hitler had annexed the rest of Czechoslovakia, and in September, the Nazi army marched into Poland. The next time Chamberlain addressed the country, it was to call for a declaration of war against Germany. Shortly afterwards, he was forced to resign and was replaced by Winston Churchill. While the Munich Declaration went on to be seen by many of Churchill's supporters as an unnecessary appeasement of Hitler, some historians have argued Chamberlain bought the country much needed time to bolster British military defences by delaying the war. Either way, the war Chamberlain sought to avoid did eventually come to pass. To find out how this pivotal moment in history pans out for the characters of Munich, The Edge of War, make sure you catch the movie, now streaming on Netflix.